Hey everyone, I'm going to start this video out a bit differently because I have to call out the audio that you're about to hear. Unfortunately, there's an issue that just persists throughout the entire thing. And we had intermittent issues with this before, but this was the first time it had actually happened throughout the entire recording. And unfortunately, there's just not much we can do in post to get rid of the weird sounds you'll hear. So we scrapped that audio setup entirely. From here on out. You might hear it in a couple of the other videos we've already recorded intermittently, but we're using a totally different audio setup now. So hopefully this doesn't happen again. I apologize. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully the video is still enjoyable. So let's get to that. This here is another viewer's broken gaming PC, and this one's got some weird behavior. So apparently the motherboard lights turn on and things when he switches the power supply on at the rear, but he cannot get the system to power on, and because of that, he obviously cannot get a post signal to a monitor. So this one, as of now, is pretty much one large paperweight, and we're going to try to fix it in this video. Hey there, welcome to the Fix or Flop playlist. If you're new here, pertinent info is in the video description. Just know that everything you see us do in these videos is done free of charge. There is a heck of a lot to unpack with this rig, so I'm going to give you the ultra condensed version. This owner has replaced almost everything in this rig in an attempt to get it to actually power on. He does get lights on the motherboard when he turns the power supply on, but attempts to actually power the rig on have always failed. He's replaced the graphics card, the CPU, the motherboard. In fact, the only thing he hasn't replaced, if I recall correctly, is this power supply here, and he hasn't done that because, again, he's seeing signs of life in the rig, the RGBs that light up when the power supply is switched on. So we might need to hone our search in on this, but I must confess, I found an even more glaring issue that could explain all of our problems. But you're gonna have to wait to find out what that is. Stay with me. Introducing Kioxia's new XG8 series NVMe SSDs featuring 5th generation BiCS Flash 3D TLC memory and PCIe 4.0 compatibility. With capacities up to 4 terabytes and support for optional security features like TCG Pyrite and Opal, Kioxia drives are perfect for your next desktop, server, or workstation. Sequential reads and writes reach up to 7,000 and 5,800 megabytes per second respectively and are suited for ultra-fast program, OS, and VM load times, bundled with peace of mind warranties and at affordable price points. Kioxia's comprehensive PCIe 4 SSD portfolio continues to grow, with products offered for a wide range of applications. Check them out, including their new XG8 drives, by clicking the link below. Hey there, welcome back. So I'm going to give you a POV perspective of this rig, and I want you to guess, well, you might not even have to guess, you might know right away what is wrong with this rig. Is there anything obvious that is missing or maybe in the wrong place? You can see we've got our 8-pin and a 4-pin up there. Got our 24-pin, all our cables along the side, cables at the bottom. What are we missing here? Does anybody see it? This is the thing I noticed right away in that Publix parking lot. So you can see we've got this HD audio cable connected, as well as what I thought was like a USB 2 cable or something like that. But we have nothing on this side. Absolutely nothing. And if he's attempting to power on this rig via the front panel, there's absolutely no way that he's going to get this rig to power on. And so I looked closer at this cable here and I realized it's actually for the front panel. Now this is actually a COM port, which most of us will never use, but since the pinout is identical to what you'd find typically for a front panel in a modern motherboard, the owner assumed this is where he had to connect his front panel cable. And you can see here, this is what that front panel connector looks like. It's actually all unified, similar to what NZXT does in some of their modern cases. And so what I think happened here is the owner recognized the same pin layout, the same pin configuration with the same key in the same spot as your typical front panel. Typically you have your power LED positive and negative, as well as your power switch on top, followed by that key gap. And then you have your hard drive LED pins on the left, and then your reset pins on the right, with an extra pin off to the right. This looks exactly the same as that front panel header that you would normally find on a board, and it's wrapped in this black plastic shroud, which makes it look all official, even though most of us will never use this. So in light of the fact that this video might only end up being 5 or 6 minutes long, we're just going to go ahead and swap the cable back over to the correct pins on the lower right side of this motherboard and attempt to power it on. We'll try for a post. If it posts, we're pretty much good to go. I'm going to check the rear because he was having issues cramming all those cables behind the motherboard tray and getting that right panel to shut.
So that's the only other thing I want to tackle, but again, kind of beside the point, because it looks like the only fix required here is just rewiring something pretty simple.
And when I say simple, I'm not talking about how simple this was to do from the get-go. I mean, there are plenty of pins here that are all really confusing, and so it can be a bit daunting. I totally see how this owner confused the location. I've done much worse on the channel, made bigger blunders. Not a big deal. I'm just talking about how simple it is to fix. We literally are done. That's it. This is the correct location for the front panel. And if you're wondering why I know that or how I know that, there is inscription underneath the pins. We actually have a dedicated video about how to wire front I/O. I'll have that linked below. But maybe you just want to look up the motherboard manual. You can do that as well. Find the front I/O section, and it'll tell you specifically what each pin does and how to wire this.
We're not going to waste any time here. Let's see if we get any post. So with the switch flipped on, you can see there's some LEDs on the motherboard. That's probably what he was seeing, but he couldn't get past this. Let's see if we do in fact get power. That's a good sign. Now he doesn't, it appears, have the front fans wired up or this rear fan. So we'll take care of those. I think we've got to take care of cable management behind the motherboard tray anyway, which I will show you in a second. It's sort of kind of a disaster, but it's okay. We told him we'd take care of it for him. I'm also not sure if Windows is even on here. Since he wasn't able to even get the system to post in the first place, he probably hasn't had a chance to install Windows unless he's migrated a drive, which we can also verify here. Now we're not getting a post. I do have things wired incorrectly. So this is slightly concerning.
12 o'clock midnight.
Still no signal. Right, so let's try bypassing the graphics card then, wiring things straight into the motherboard. Looks like we're starting this all over. And recall, he did tell me that this card was confirmed working in another rig, so that would suck if this card is also dead. I know he said he's replacing this anyway, but it would be nice to still have a backup or give it to a friend or family member. I'm going to connect the HDMI cable directly to the back of the motherboard. I'm not sure if the CPU has integrated graphics or not, but I'm just going to assume that it does because I don't want to take this CPU cooler off if I don't have to. It's a beefier Noctua one, which actually is upside down. Another upside down Noctua cooler. This is like the second time in a row we've had it, and it's this exact same cooler as well. I guess people just don't notice that there's text there, and it really doesn't hurt anything, but yes, it is upside down, so that's kind of bothering me. Let's see if we get a post this time through integrated graphics. So it fires up just fine. Wow, but we're still not getting a post. I really hope that him connecting that front panel cable into the COM port didn't fry something on the motherboard. That wouldn't be good. This power supply looks fine on our Passmark tester, so I don't see a need to replace this anytime soon. That was with these cable extensions connected still, by the way, so I don't see a need to replace or remove these. Well, this is looking like a motherboard or a CPU issue. And here's why I think that. No matter what we try to do that doesn't involve the motherboard or CPU, including swapping out DRAM, swapping out the graphics card for a known and working one, our trusty XFX card down there, we have unplugged everything that's non-vital. We still get no post. I mean, nothing on the screen at all. The system fans are not ramping up or down. It just stays at a static RPM. And I am getting the hunch that this might be a BIOS compatibility issue. It's possible to run 13th gen, so 13,000 series Intel CPUs on Z690 motherboards, but you need a BIOS update first. And so it's possible that if there's a 13th gen chip in here, it might just not be posting because the BIOS isn't compatible. I'm going to verify that by removing this cooler, which we were gonna have to do anyway because it's upside down. Oh, and yes, before someone all caps me in the comments, I did clear the CMOS. That was one of the first things I did, and unfortunately didn't change our situation. This CPU is a Core i7, see, as I suspected, a Core i7 13700K. If this was built brand new, even though it's a bit dusty, it looks like it's been sitting for a very long time. I'm not sure how long it has not been working. But if you built this stuff new, there's most certainly no way that this Z690 motherboard had BIOS compatible with 13th gen out of the box. So that's the first thing I'm going to tackle. I don't know if this has BIOS flashback functions or not, but just for me, a quicker way to do this is just to pop in a 12th gen chip very quickly, and then we'll update the BIOS that way.
By the way, the underside of the CPU looks really clean, no obstructions here.
And his socket also, thankfully, looks really good. It was a tad bit dirty, but I don't see any bent or missing pins. I'm going to drop in a Core i5-12500 to get the ball rolling here, and we'll just hook this platform up to his power supply externally, since we're going to be swapping it right back out once that BIOS is updated.
We've got our USB drive connected. We've downloaded the most up-to-date BIOS for this motherboard. And would you look at that, it boots right up with that 12500. This only confirms our suspicion about it being an incompatible BIOS. And you can actually reference up top here, this version of the BIOS is super, super old. Definitely doesn't support 13th gen. All right, and while this is installing, again, you want to make sure that you're not prone to power outages. Don't do this during a thunderstorm. If you don't have a backup BIOS, you might have a totally bricked motherboard, especially if it's an older board. You don't want to have to replace that chip entirely. Also, don't judge my super messy, super basic test bed. It gets the job done, okay?
You know, it's actually kind of cool that things worked out this way, because we've been preaching this for a good while with regard to Ryzen CPUs, specifically the AM4 platform. It is so versatile and it encompasses so many different Ryzen generations that you do have to mind the BIOS in question when especially pairing an older motherboard with a newer CPU. In this case, between at least 12th and 13th gen Intel CPUs, you also have to mind that. It's pretty much the same story, just with different hardware. Anyway, now that this is posted again, let's go ahead and swap back in his original 13700K. Hopefully, we'll get a post without issues.
Also, quick side note, while this is booting up, I noticed that this board actually has debug LEDs just above the 24 pin. I was kind of confused why I couldn't see them earlier, and I think it was because the BIOS was incompatible with the 13th gen chip. You can see it's hanging right now on the DRAM LED. I think it's just because it's training memory. In a few seconds, it should actually post. So that would be, yeah, that would be helpful any minute now.
12 seconds later.
We've got a problem. This stupid DRAM light is now staying on. I was complaining about them being off a few seconds ago, and now they're just stuck on. Yeah. I've tried multiple sticks of DDR5. I've tried multiple slots. I have no idea why it's not posting now with his 13th gen chip in here. I'm going to try one of my own 13th gen chips and see if it's just his CPU that's giving us problems. But wow, that would awfully suck if it was not only a BIOS incompatibility, but also some sort of like CPU issue that's just unfixable given the tools I have here. So yeah, I'll get like a 13900K or something, somewhere in there. Actually, I'll bring you over here. Let's go. So here is my little stash of CPUs. And we've got to find what we're looking for. Wow. Okay, so I popped in my, I had a 13600K, and there's a post, folks. Sorry about the glare, but yeah, that's a post. So why is it posting no problem with a 13600K, but not his 13700K? This isn't looking good. I think he's going to need a CPU replacement. Unfortunately, I don't have anything as powerful as his CPU on hand. I just have that Core i5, which I don't want to give him because it's not really, that's actually a downgrade. So yeah, he'll have a working rig, but that CPU, I think he can get replaced because it is rather new. So here is the situation. The CPU just doesn't want to post. It's still on right now. It still hasn't posted. The DRAM light's still lit. I've tried every single slot. I've tried multiple DDR5 modules. Nothing wants to post. But my 13600K does, which tells me that it's not a BIOS issue any longer. It would have been before, but he just has, unfortunately, another CPU problem that's preventing the rig from actually powering on fully. So because it is a 13th gen CPU, I know for a fact it is still covered under warranty. I can reach out to Intel directly and have them send this gentleman a replacement CPU. He's already waiting on a replacement graphics card anyway, so I don't think this is anything super time sensitive, and the rig frankly looks a little dusty. It looks like it's been sitting for a good while, so it doesn't come across as like one of those like time sensitive projects that needs to be finished, say, before Christmas, which we've made exceptions for. We've taken on broken things that could have been RMA'd just for the sake of getting up and running quickly. So I'm going to leave his CPU in as is. We're going to reassemble everything. I'm going to tell him where we are. We're just waiting for that post. It is definitely CPU related. He just needs to get that swapped out. We'll take care of cable management and everything else for him. So all he'll need to do is pop that new chip in,
and his rig should be good to go. And like I said, I would normally just replace his CPU with one I already have here, but this being the only one I have and the fact that it is a downgrade just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. These are new components, more or less, so he should just be able to RMA it and get a proper replacement with the correct number of cores. So let's get this platform back in here. I'm gonna try to straighten up cable management as we go as well. I noticed he's missing a few screws, so we'll take care of that for him. Basic wiring taken care of. This thing looks a lot better than it did when it came in. We've got these panels to help cover things up. Just closes like that. Yep, closes no problem now. And then this panel here slots in somehow. Is that it? Yep, and then closes, effortless. We've got our top panel, take care of that. And then where's our, yes. And then our left side panel, drop in. This swings and should shut with ease. It wasn't shutting before. Nice. It's not even peeled. You've still got plastic to peel here. That's so tempting, but it's not mine to do. Just for the lulz, one last time, I want to try firing this up. We'll see. Who knows, maybe the increased mounting pressure now that the CPU cooler is like fully mounted there, maybe that'll fix the problem. I doubt it, but yeah, I would be, I'd be pretty upset if I didn't try it at least one last time before giving it back to the owner. So all the fans this time are spinning. I believe we should have RGB up front. I'll go back and check that. We're still stuck on the DRAM LED. And unfortunately, I feel like that's where it's going to stay. There's just something fishy about this CPU. If it was purchased new like this, super unfortunate, just bad luck all around. But if it was used and abused, maybe it was transferred from another rig and just tossed around, I mean, who really knows? I can only go off of what I see here. And it definitely doesn't want to play ball.
You know what? I just noticed this power supply doesn't have any SATA power cables connected. Now, I did receive the box from the owner just in case something like this were to occur. However, he still does not have any Molex or SATA power cables in here. I don't know where this power supply is from. Again, it checks out according to our tester, but yeah, we're missing some cables. So no RGB for now. Well, let's count the number of things we fixed here that ultimately led to more things that needed to be fixed. The front panel cable, first and foremost, that was obvious, easy fix. Then after that, it was the BIOS incompatibility. Fairly easy to discern, easy fix. We checked that it boots with a 13600K, but it won't boot with his 13700K. So it's not a BIOS issue any longer. It's potentially just a CPU-specific issue, probably a defective memory controller on board that's preventing it from communicating with the DRAM, which is why the DRAM debug light is on. No picture to the screen. We're missing power cables outright from the power supply. I don't know if some of these components were secondhand or not. Clearly the graphics card is, the power supply might be, but at least the viewer now knows what that final thing is that needs to be swapped out. It's unfortunate that it has to be something as expensive as the 13700K, and I don't have, I thought I had another 13900K, I do not. I only have 12th gen replacements. I have a 12900K, but I don't want to downgrade them even generation-wise. Even if it's an upgrade from a core count or frequency perspective, it's still a downgrade generation over generation, so I want to stick at least apples to apples here, or potentially upgrade him. And I know that he can get a replacement from Intel. Whether I go through the RMA warranty process or he does, it really doesn't matter. But I'd rather just give this back to him and let him swap it in. And if he has any issues with Intel, I can reach out to them directly and provide more insight. We'll get that expedited for him. So in the end, unfortunately, not a full fix, but we do know what is wrong. And hopefully the system doesn't have to be down for very much longer. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Fix or Flop, and thank you for another epic season of this playlist. I just realized that it's episode 20, at least it's slated to be episode 20. And I cannot put together with words how grateful I am to all of you. Even if you just click on the video and skim through it very quickly, I do not care. The fact that you are willing to engage in any capacity with this playlist means so much to me. And not only does it help me provide for my family, of course, but we're also able to make a small impact here locally in Orlando
And my hope is that I can continue to grow this and expand it even to other cities around this country. It's because of you and your viewership that we're able to continue doing this for our community. So thank you again so much for that. And I only hope that I can continue bringing educational, hopefully educational, informative, and maybe even entertaining videos in this playlist and others in the future. So I'll send you off with that. And don't worry, another season of Fix or Flop is coming up very, very soon. We have so many entries already in the system for the next season. It's unreal how many problems people are running into with their computers, but I will gladly help where I can, or at least, especially in this case here, point you in the right direction. If you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you have a broken system and you live around Orlando, Florida, and you want a chance to have it fixed for free, yeah, that link is in the video description. Check that out, and stay tuned for the next video here on the channel. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.